This is my worst ride ever! Stick around till the end of this video, because I am gone. Now I'll show you exactly what went wrong with it. Now, here's a look at the bike in its current condition. It looks like it was designed to be ridden by someone who's about 9 feet tall. Look at how far the seat is from the floor. And this is a small size, not even a medium. That's not good. I mean, for reference, this is how far my heels are from the floor when I'm straddled on the bike. Now, the saddle is pretty much brand new. It's never been ridden with. In fact, most of this bike is brand new. So why does it look like it was ridden by a giant? Well, let's go back to the beginning of this story. Fast forward to last week, to be exact, May 28th, 2023. I had just finished building this pivot mock for SL, and I was super excited to take it for its first ride. This bike is a total beast. The frame has been updated to accept a 29 by 3 inch wide tire up front and a 27 by 3 inch wide tire in the rear. The bike also features a flip chip, which allows you to change the geometry, depending on where you place the included spacers under the main pivot. It has 142 millimeters of rear wheel travel, and the rear shock is the new Roco TST. Plus, it comes with a 160 millimeter travel lyric fork up front. All that makes this bike perfect for tackling gnarly trails, which we have plenty of here in Southern California. So I was really looking forward to getting out there and seeing what it could do. The plan was to take the bike to one of my favorite local trails, which consists of a 7-mile loop with just over 3,000 feet of climbing. It is a great place to test a new bike, because there is a little bit of everything out there. Flowy, single track, rock gardens, steep climbs and descents, tight switchbacks, and some rooty sections. So I thought it would be a great place to get a good feel for the Mach 4 SLS capabilities. So after work, I got everything packed up, grabbed the bike, and headed out the door. I met up with some friends at the trailhead, and we got ready to roll. We started making our way up the first climb, and I was immediately impressed with how well the bike was handling. The 29 by 3 inch wide Maxxis Minion tires were rolling over everything I threw at them, and the bike was staying planted even through the raucous sections. I was able to keep a high cadence, and the bike didn't feel bogged down or sluggish. In fact, it felt really light and nimble despite its 28-pound weight. We made our way through the first few miles, and I was loving every minute of it. The flowy sections were fast and fun, and the bike was taking all the big hits in stride. Just as I was starting to think that this was going to be an epic ride, things started to go downhill fast. As we approached a particularly steep and rocky section, I felt the front tires slip out from under me. I tried to correct, but it was too late. The bike went down, and I slid across the ground on my right side. I tried to put my hand out to stop myself, but I only managed to scrape my palm. The bike tumbled end over end a few times and came to a stop on its right side. I was okay, but the bike wasn't. I got the bike upright and started inspecting the damage. The first thing I noticed was that the right shifter was bent and the brake lever was dangling by a thread. Both the shifter and the brake needed to be completely replaced. But those weren't the worst damages. Getting a closer look, I saw that the derailleur hanger was bent, which meant that the rear derailleur could be aligned correctly no matter how many times I tried to adjust it. I checked the rear wheel to see if it was true, and it seemed fine. But the constant banging of the derailleur against the spokes indicated that it was definitely bent. With the derailleur bent, I couldn't shift properly, which meant that I couldn't ride the bike back home. I had two options: call a tow truck or try to fix the derailleur hanger and ride the bike back. In the past, I've used a derailleur hanger tool to straighten out bent hangers, but unfortunately, this particular tool wouldn't fit onto the pivot's derailleur hanger. So that meant that I either had to order a new one or try to straighten it with something else. I decided to try using a piece of angle iron that I had in my truck, but that turned out to be a bad idea. As soon as I started hammering on it, the hanger snapped in half, so that left me with no choice but to call a tow truck. As I sat there waiting for the tow truck, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment. I had been so excited to take this bike out and see what it could do. And now, it was all over, before I even made it to the good part of the trail. To top it off, I was covered in dirt and sweat, and the bike was in pieces. I felt like I was the laughing stock of the trail. Finally, the tow truck arrived, and the driver helped me load up the bike and get it into my truck. I drove home feeling dejected and defeated. I had high hopes for this bike and this ride, but it was a total bust. But that's not the worst part. The worst part was that I had to tell my wife about it. I knew she was going to be upset, and there was no way I was going to be able to hide it. She would see the mud on my clothes, the dirt under my nails, and the scratches on my arms, and she would know that I had crashed. Sure enough, as soon as I walked in the door, she started grilling me about it. I tried to downplay it at first, but she could tell that I was hiding something. Finally, I gave in and told her everything. She wasn't happy, but she wasn't mad. She was more disappointed than anything. And that hurt more than anything else. After I told her about it, I went straight to the garage to take a closer look at the bike. I pulled out my trusty pivot toolkit, which includes everything you need to work on your pivot bike. I pulled out the torque wrench and checked the specs for the derailleur hanger bolts. I didn't want to over-tighten them and mess up the threads, so I set the wrench to the proper torque and started tightening. I finished up with the driver's side bolt and moved to the passenger side. I started to tighten it, but the bolt just kept spinning. I tried again, and it still just spun. I took a closer look and realized that the threads were completely stripped. So after getting chewed out by my wife, having to call a tow truck, and dealing with a bent derailleur hanger, I found out that I had stripped the threads in the frame. Just my luck. At this point, I was ready to call it quits. I had spent way too much time, energy, and money on this bike already, and I didn't feel like dealing with the hassle of getting a replacement frame. So I did something crazy. I called a local bike shop and asked if they could weld the derailleur hanger onto the frame. They said that they could, but it would take a couple of days. So I dropped the bike off and waited. A few days later, I got a call from the shop letting me know that it was ready. I picked up the bike and brought it home. I was a little nervous about how it was going to look, but it actually turned out to be pretty nice. You could still see the weld, but it's not really noticeable unless you're looking for it. I took the bike out the next day, and it handled like a champ. I was able to get all the way through the ride without crashing, which was a huge relief. In the end, I learned a few valuable lessons from this experience. First of all, no matter how good a bike is, it's not worth riding if you're not 100% focused and in control. Secondly, always have a backup plan. I got lucky that day because I had my truck and a friend who could come and tow me back home. But it could have been a lot worse. I could have gotten injured, or the bike could have been totaled. But most importantly, I learned that it's okay to walk away when things aren't going your way. Sometimes it's better to cut your losses and live to ride another day. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever had a ride go terribly wrong. We've all been there before, so don't be shy. Share your stories with us. I'm always interested to hear how other people got Clyde on their rides. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out some of our other great content. Thanks for watching!